So the 6 personal perspectives is actually a full day long class, but we decided because it's the start of the year that we would break it down into nice chunks of an hour to an hour and a half for each of the 6 steps. So last week we covered the first one, which was commit to self-mastery. For those of you that weren't with us last week, I'm just going to overview what that is. So we have to learn to master ourselves before we can master anything else. So last week we looked at a little bit about that and how we can master ourselves. And this week we're moving on to step 2, the second perspective, which is commit to the 80-20 principle. And you guys have just heard Eugene talking about a lot of things that relate very closely to this. So let's get started. So when you're committed to self-mastery and have set your goals for tasks and topics you want to master, the 80-20 principle will help you focus your efforts on what is necessary to attain those goals. So there is a pattern of predictable imbalance in life, and it is called the 80-20 principle. So we're just going to take a few minutes, and typically I would have the class read this, but because we're split between Zoom and class and we don't have too many in the class, I'm going to read it ourselves. So this is an excerpt from the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book. In the 1940s, quality control manager Dr. Joseph Duran documented a life-changing universal principle that he called the vital few and trivia many. The idea was that a relatively small percentage of your efforts leads to the vast majority of your results. He attributed some of his findings to the statistical work of the Italian economist Alfredo Pareto, who had observed that 80% of the wealth in his country was owned by 20% of the population. As fate would have it, that broadly embraced principle came to be known not as Duran's law, but the Pareto principle. These days, we simply call it the 80-20 principle. The idea that 20% of your actions leads to 80% of your results may be one of the most powerful principles you can apply to your life. It's about getting the most from your time and effort. It's about maximizing your results. It's about having focus. Focus is the key to great success, more than effort, experience, or even natural ability. Look at the highest achievers in any field, and you'll discover that they have powerful focus. Just as importantly, you'll learn that they focus on the right things, the handful of truly important issues that make the big difference. So we're going to take a minute here, and we're going to show you a quick video, share a quick video with you. I can see better.
I feel like that every day.
It's the worst, isn't it? Oh my goodness. So let's take a minute and watch this little video here.
Hi, my name is Jonathan Dupree, and I've been with Keller Williams since 2019, and I've been in the real estate industry my entire life, and I am so excited that you're here today to learn about one of my favorite perspectives, the 80-20 rule. This is one of my favorite perspectives out of the 6 perspectives because it basically helps you as an agent, as a leader, move from where you are to where you want to be faster, to collapse those time frames down. What it basically says is that 20% of your activities are going to generate 80% of your results. I've lived by this perspective since I was a kid. I grew up playing basketball. In fact, I was horrible at basketball 6th and 7th grade. I made a decision I wanted to be good, and I got the Pete Maravich Pistol Pete basketball tapes. And every morning I would do my dribbling drills, I would do my passing drills, defense drills, the skills to help me become a better player. I'd shoot 1,000 shots every single day, 500 free throws every single day. And then from my 7th grade to my 8th grade year, I became a much better player. My 8th grade year to my freshman year, I became a starter on the varsity team. Then I started thinking about playing at the collegiate level. And I knew that I wasn't the most talented player, but if I wanted to have the opportunity to play at the collegiate level, I had to really hone in on what were the things that mattered most to helping me become a better player. And it was mastering the fundamentals, doing the drills over and over and over and over again until I mastered them. Then I got into the real estate business. My mother's been an agent for 52 years, and she taught me, Jonathan, if you focus on listings, you will make more money than other agents who focus solely on buyers. So I made the bulk of my activity to generate leads to get listings. And as a result, I was able to build a successful real estate career. You know, I remember as a new team leader walking through our market center, and I saw one of our agents who was newer, and they were working so hard at creating all these forms. And I stopped and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm making all these forms that will help me with my clients." I told him those forms already existed, and he was wasting his time on the 80% activities that generated 20% of his results. I'll never forget when he finally realized he needed to spend his time devoted to lead generating, to get listings, to write contracts, to close deals so that he could make money. He finally understood about prioritizing his business and focusing on what matters most so that he could end up building the life that he desired and that he deserved. And he still brings that conversation up. That was a shift for him when he realized he was avoiding doing what he knew he should do most to grow his business, so that he still though felt productive by creating those forms. See, as an agent, or you look at it as a leader, anywhere in your life, you have to determine what are the levers that I can pull that will help me collapse the time frames and get the results that I desire. Those 20% activities, gaining clarity to what matters most for you in your business. And in real estate, we know it's lead generate, to get appointments, to get listings, to have write contracts, to have closings, to make money. I'm so excited that you're about to learn about this perspective. I can't wait till you implement it. And one thing I want to leave you with is the speed of growth in your business will always be determined by the speed of implementation. How quickly you take these perspectives that you're learning about today and apply them to your personal life and to your business. I can't wait to see how far you go and how much you grow by implementing these perspectives and strategies into your business and your personal life. So let's get ready to learn.
Thank you, Jonathan. Okay. So let's talk about what that looks like. I'm sure that you've all heard things in there that we've done ourselves, right? I know personally, I just sat in our ALC meeting yesterday and said, I wrote in my diary that on Sunday night, last week, a week from Sunday, the one thing for each of the things that I was going to do last week, and I totally failed. I didn't even do the one thing. And I felt terrible yesterday. It was like, I actually wrote beside it, you did terrible this week. But, you know, today's another day, right? So I can now go back and say, okay, well, I'm a week late, but I can still go back and do something about that. So we've talked about this, and now we are going to, one of the many books that really talks about this in a lot of detail is The One Thing. I think The One Thing has come up a lot in this already, and anybody who does not have The One Thing book or has not read it, get it, read it, Audible, wherever. It is not a real estate book. It is written by one of our main guys. Gary Keller was part of it, but Jake Papasan is the main author for it. I would highly recommend it as a wonderful gift to anybody you also know who might be struggling with just getting to their next level, getting to their goals. They also do a wonderful planner. It's called the One Thing Planner, which actually uses exactly what we're learning today, the 80-20 principles. And I gave that to two of my email friends for Christmas that I know are kind of going to different stages in their life, starting new businesses, doing things. And I gave them the One Thing last year, and I gave them the planner for Christmas, and they love it. So I highly recommend it. It can be found in every airport bookstore. It can be found pretty much in anywhere that sells books, it's going to be found. So we know the principle isn't intuitive. The 80-20 principle is not intuitive. We always feel in our lives like the more we do, the greater the results we should see, right? I mean, is that not what we do? Is that, oh, we're going to do more, we're going to do more, we're going to see greater results. It's not true. There's a difference in being busy and being productive. And that was exactly what happened to me yesterday. And I said, well, I had a busy week last week, but I did not achieve the one things that I had written down that I narrowed down with the most important. So what did I just do? I was just busy all week. I wasn't productive. So here we go. Another week, another chance to change that. So there's this little story really resonates. And if I could have found stones and rocks and things in jars, I would have done the actual example, but I'm not. I'm going to read it because I would have probably spilled them everywhere. So the philosopher professor decided to teach his class a lesson on priority. So he pulled out a jar and he added as many big rocks as he could into that jar. So you imagine we've got a mason jar and we've got large rocks. He put as many as he could in that jar. He asked the students if it was full, and they agreed it was. The rocks were to the top of the jar. So the professor picked up a box of pebbles, smaller than those rocks, poured them in. He shook the jar lightly. The pebbles, of course, rolled into the open areas between the rocks. He then asked the students if the jar was full. Fewer students agreed about it this time because now they're thinking, well, we thought it was full, but it wasn't. The professor then picked up a box of sand and he poured it in. The sand, of course, filled up everything else. And when he asked the students again if it was full, he heard a few tentative yesies before he pulled out a watering can and proceeded to fill the jar to the brim. He looked out at the faces and he said, can we all finally agree that the jar is full, right? The students nodded, wondering where he was going with this demonstration. So he pulled out another empty jar, identical to the first. More big rocks, more small rocks, more pebbles, more sand, and more water, in reverse order this time. Starting with the water, he asked if he filled the jar with those things, would there be room for any of the other things? All of the students said no. When he got to the big rocks, he exclaimed, the big rocks must go in first. This jar is symbolic of your life. Everything here represents a priority in your life. The big rocks represent the highest priorities in your life, your list of essential non-negotiables. The others represent smaller and less important priorities, our busy stuff, right? The water, the sand, those are all our busy stuff. If you spend all of your life chasing trivial things that don't matter, you will never achieve your highest priorities. Whatever your highest priorities are, make sure that you make adequate time and space in your life to accompany them. And that is the 80-20 rule. Any ahas? Any ahas in Zoomland? Zoomland, I love that. Okay, so I think it's a really good, it's a really good overview of how that looks. I mean, I think when we were in class last week, we did have an example of something that was really a big rock, and I know he's not going to mind me sharing it. So Bill had said something about spending time with his grandchildren, and so that's a big rock, but other things get in his way, and he gets off track with that. But those are the big rocks. You can't replace those, right? And our businesses are our big rocks. Our health is our big rocks. In the book, the one thing, I'm stepping off 80-20 here for a minute, but in the book, in the one thing, there are 6 circles in our life. And I probably won't remember them all, but we've got our health, financial, our relationships, our business, and I forget what the other 2 are, but those are the main circles of our life. Those are our big rocks. So if we continue to fill our time with the water and the sand, we never prioritize those big rocks and we never get the results that other people do. So how about now, how does a successful person turn a to-do list into a success list? Well, you've got to identify the 20%. And then we're going to go even smaller. So last week, we looked at some of our goals. And for those of you that weren't with us last week and you didn't write down those goals, you probably have done some goal setting for this year. We're right at the start of the year. You've probably got something in the top of your mind. Take that something and think about that goal. And then we've got to figure out, we make all our to-do lists, but is that really what we need to do? So much to do about nothing. While to-do lists serve as a useful collection of our best intentions, we've all got long to-do lists, they also tyrannize us with trivial, unimportant stuff that feels obligated to get done because it's on our list. Achievers operate differently. They have an eye for essential things. So left in its raw state, a simple inventory, a to-do list can easily lead you astray. The first thing on your list is just the first thing you thought of. To-do lists inherently lack intent of success. Long hours spent checking off a to-do list and ending the day with a full trash can and clear desk have nothing to do with success. Instead of a to-do list, you need a success list. A list that's purposely created around extraordinary results. To-do lists tend to be long, success lists are short. So don't we all look at our to-do list and we always choose the one that's easiest first, right? Always. The ones that give us that funny feeling inside are normally the ones that we don't do first. In fact, they're the very ones that we should do. The ones that potentially give you some kind of insight, not I'm just going to get it done. You get an inner feeling of a stall, a thought, or something that comes to your mind. Take that as an indication that's probably the first thing that you need to do. But how do we get that to-do list down to a success list? So what we do is we start with our list and we look at that and we look at what's going to lead us to more success. There's things on that list that are going to lead us to more success. So that's our 20% success list. So are you working on your 20% every day? Maybe we're going to find that out. So if we're thinking about the goal that we set, write down the goal that you set for yourself before. If any of you were in the class last week, write down your goal that you set before, or write down a goal that you have for the year. Let's just use, we're real estate. Let's use our unit goal. List the tasks that you need to do or could do to achieve the goal. Maybe they're professional, maybe they're personal. Write down as many of them as possible. So let's just use real estate because we weren't all in the class together and we're not going through this as a big class. Let's use real estate as an example. So if our goal is to close 36 units this year, 3 units every year, let's just list out some of those things that we could do to do that. So let's have some suggestions. What could we do to do that? What type of things could we do?
Door knock our neighborhood.
Yep, we could door knock,
Old 100.
the bold, yep. What other things would you need? You just talked about something in that video. When you're building your business and you're getting things ready, you gotta buy. Say again.
Oh, script and role play.
Script and role play. Katie, was that you that said something?
Mine wasn't right because it was with script and role play. I said practice.
Okay. What do most people do when they are getting into the business? We're getting ready to get ready.
Building systems.
Yes. Okay. Building systems. What else do we do?
Call.
What other part of the business could we do? What are we on every day? Scrolling through
Oh, the MLS.
Social media.
social media. They build their business page, right? They do all those things. What else do? They go to a lot of classes, maybe. Yes, we do.
Uh-huh.
These are all to-dos. If you were to list 30 things that an agent could do to start their business, you're going to find that a lot of those are 80%, right?
Mhm.
The building systems is important, but there's no good in having a system unless we've got a lead, right? So when we look at that list, you got to go back and you got to circle the ones that are the 20%. Cross out the word to do and replace it with success. Because to do right away, when you're looking at a list and it says to do, it is a subliminal thing that's telling you it needs to be done, right? Change that, change it to my success list. So then when you look at that again, what is the one thing you should be focused on to achieve your goal? Well, in this instance, what would it be?
Lead gen.
Lead gen. Getting the leads enough to be able to have a business to use all those things that we've been building. Realistically, all the rest of this stuff is 80%. So when we look at that, we can ask ourselves one question. So this is what we're going through right now. So when we look at that, we've now got our list and we've got our to-do list. And now we've got down to our success list. We've looked at 20% of what we've written there is actually dollar producing or the most important things in the real estate situation. But what is that one thing that would have the most impact of all? So ask yourself this question. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? So in this example of real estate, we said it's lead generation. What is the one thing that I could do that would make everything else easier? If I had a lead, if I had somebody to work with, everything else would flow in its path. So then you go back to that 20% list and you say, okay, which is the one thing that's the most important? What is the thing that would generate the easiest, the quickest, whatever it is? And then you focus on that. And that is how you get down from a success list to the one thing. But I highly recommend, I don't know about you guys, I'm sure you're all the same. You're probably same as me. You've got to-do lists as long as your arm. I mean, we all do. It's just the world we live in. And you've probably got more than one. You got like a business list, and you've got your home list, and you've got one at work on the desk, and you've got all of those. But so for me, as an example, I've got quite a lot of things in the fire this year. So I've got kind of probably 4 or 5 different buckets. I have my real estate business. I have my coaching, that I'm starting a certification for tomorrow for transitional coaching, transformational coaching, and then I coach horsemanship coaching. That is another business. Then we have Airbnbs that we operate as well. And my husband decided it was a phenomenal idea to turn my horses, what they eat, as I call them, the money munchers, what comes out the other end. He's turned it into compost and now he wants to sell it. But guess who's got to do the legwork for that? Okay, me. So it's a great
Sounds like a
idea.
man.
It's a great idea.
Uh-huh.
And it involves me doing some back end stuff. He can do the manual. I have to do the back end. So what I did was I kind of sat down at I'm trying to be, not trying. I intend, we're back in bold, guys. I intend every Sunday to do what I did a week past Sunday. But I failed last week. I got one thing from each of those things. And I said, okay, I'm going to do this. That is the one thing out from this portion of my life. It's the one thing from here and so on and so forth. But I failed miserably. And I had to really face that last night. That I looked at that list and I said, I didn't achieve any one of those. And I could have had a good excuse if I'd been out with buyers or something like that, but I wasn't out with any buyers last week. So what was I actually doing? I was just staying in my 80% because that was comfortable for me. I don't like to do some of the other things. It involves feeling uncomfortable. So that has to change. I know that. And I'm sure that I know that when I sit in things like this, I'm feeling uncomfortable because I know that we've all got the same things going on. especially in busy lives when we've got families and all kinds of things to take care of. So how many of you in here are familiar with our 411?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So
Yep.
for many of you, the 411 is a plan and it accomplishes your goals. So let's talk about how we use the 411. How does that tie in with our 80/20? So the 411 is a lovely little Keller Williams thing that we do that starts back behind that from our GPS, or as we used to call it, the 135. And that is really your outline for the year. What is GPS? It's why do we use a GPS in a car? To tell us how we get to somewhere. The GPS for Keller Williams in real estate is nothing other than that. It tells us how we get to our goal. And then from there, we bring in the 411 and work it together. And the 411 is a tool you can use to keep track of and stay focused on those goals. It also reflects your top priorities and your big rocks. It's a list of goals broken down into annual, monthly, and weekly categories because we look at those things and we say, 36 transactions, how the heck am I going to do that? Right? I mean, it's just you're out there going, it's too big. You don't really know where to start. You start and then you stumble and then you stop. Like Eugene was talking about, then the fear kicks in and then it maybe freezes you and holds you in place. But when you really break it down and you use our systems like the 411 to look at what is the smallest thing that I can do, and they start to snowball like he was talking about, that is how you gain momentum. But we have to have something to break it down. So what we do is we build a powerful and effective 411 checklist, and you'll see it right here on the screen. So first of all, we're going to set weekly goals that correspond to that larger monthly goal. So that monthly goal in this circumstance would be 3 under contract, right? 3 closings. That would be what it is. So in order to get to that monthly goal, what do we have to do every week to get to that goal? Then we're going to set monthly goals that correspond to the larger goal. And we're going to make sure that our weekly goals are a success list, not a to-do list. Not a to-do list. Not I got to post on social media. I got to, do this system. I got to get my buyer presentation. Guess what? You don't need that buyer presentation until you got a buyer. We can all put something together. It's nice to be prepared. It really is. But we need the leads first. Then we're going to plan weekly goal activities no more than 1 week in advance to allow for a change in direction if needed. We all have things happen. There's no point in planning for the whole month. That's why I like to do it on a Sunday evening. I sit down and I look at my calendar for the week. I write on, I've started this year. My phone is always going to be my calendar. I don't look at it when I schedule things. My paper planner, I look at my phone. But I have a paper diary this year, and I got you are a bad word beginning with A, and I can't use it because I'm not paying $25 to KW Cares. The big yellow book. And I write in my appointments each week. So I'm only using that because that makes me see that there's a lot of space in between those things. And that's the spaces where I can fill with my success items, my one thing for each thing. So no more than a week ahead because things change. Keep it just 1 week ahead. Set annual goals that are realistically can be accomplished in a 12-month time period. So if you were a new agent and you said to me, I want to sell 60 homes this year, honestly, I'm going to tell you that's not a realistic goal, right? You're setting yourself up for failure. It is not. There's always a comfort and there's always a push. And then there's unrealistic. Don't go with the unrealistic. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do anybody else or your family any good because you end up just throwing it out and you do it year after year after year. I have to tell you that that's what happened with me with coaching for many years because we always had to think bigger, do the rest. And I realized that that wasn't what I needed. I knew my numbers and I knew what I needed to do to live a nice life. I wasn't that person that wanted to sell 100 homes. That wasn't me. And there's plenty of people out there that do and they achieve it. It wasn't me. It was never my intention. So trying to think bigger like that, I think there's think bigger to live the life you want to design yourself. But I think that goes back to your big why. So be realistic. Don't get crazy on this. Avoid revising the goals set in the prior week to reflect new goals or missed goals. So be careful about that. Don't reset things just because you didn't achieve those. Like, because I missed my one things I didn't do last week, I could say, oh, well, I'm going to reset certain things. There's no point. Just chalk it up, acknowledge it, master your own self, and try again the next week. Intend to do things better the next week. So if we take a look at a sample 411 of a mega agent's 411, because we're talking about real estate. So let's take a look at the 411. Here's a copy. This is an example of what a 411 looks like. So you've got, you can see right at the top, you've got your annual goals. So this is always really going to stay the same, your annual goals. You have 411 for every month. The top section, your annual goals, should not change. That is what you set at the beginning of the year. Every month, you should have one of those. But your month goals, they're probably not going to change much either. They're going to stay. So for example, this Mike, the mega agent, wanted to sell 24 listings for his job, which is what we're looking at. He wanted to sell 24 listings, 18 buyers, 60 quality leads, and 150 listing appointments. He got those numbers by going to business planning. He went to business planning probably in October, and in December he started doing this. Business planning, he punched in his numbers, what he really needed. He looked back, he started with a number of what do I need to cover to live? What do I need to cover all my expenses? And what do I need to live the life that I want? And then what do I need if I want to like go a little bit more, however, whatever that looks like. Then he worked those numbers backwards. He said, I need X amount of dollars. He worked those numbers backwards using the average price point in his area, using his conversion rate that he's already found out that maybe he goes on 4 listing appointments before he gets 1. Maybe that's the case. It depends how your business is. You know your conversion rates, and then he worked all those things back. We have lovely little calculators in business planning that allow you to see exactly what that looks like. So from that, he now says, okay, so in this month, I know that I have to get 5 listings this month. I have to sell 2 of them, but I have to have 15 listing appointments. If he's going to take 5 listings, but he has to go on 15 appointments, he knows his conversion rate there, right? He's got to go on, for every 3 appointments he goes on, he gets 1. Is that right? Somebody check my math. That's right?
Yeah.
For every 3 appointments he goes on, he takes 1. So he knows he has to go on 15 listing appointments. He's probably not even looking at any of this other stuff. He probably just knows that he has to generate those amount of appointments. So now, when he comes to the week 1, you start on the Sunday evening, the week before week 1. You look at this list of monthly goals and you say, this week, I have to go on 5 listing appointments. Okay, that's his job this week. He's got to close 1 buyer contract. And in order to do that, he has to lead generate 3 hours a day. That's all he has to do for his job. From this big annual goal, he's figured out that this week, he just has to set 5 listing appointments because he knows that if he just focuses on those things, they will automatically happen, the other things. And you can see that the 411, you can find these 411 in the GPS in Connect. There's templates, PDFs of them in there, super easy to find. You can see there's a business section, there's a personal financial, and there's personal. So you can use this for pretty much every aspect of your life and take a look at what you need to do. But what you need to do is right here, weekly. It isn't this big thing that you're going to get you really stuck under and get stuck with. It's what do I need to do every single week? Small things, 20%. So here's a blank 411. No, we're not, because we're not all in class, we're not going to do this today and while we're on the class. But go to Connect. You can pull down the 411 and the GPS. I highly recommend the GPS as well. And there is probably videos on there on how to use the GPS. You got to be very specific how you use that. And there's things that you need to do. Then you relay that right into here. But the 411 is a great thing to have on your wall or in your calendar, your diary, wherever that you carry every week with you. And this is what you do on a Sunday night. So it's one thing to grasp a concept like the 80-20 principle. It's another to actually apply it. So how do we actually apply all these things? Now we've figured out what we need to do, what the 20% is, what our most important big rocks are, but how do we actually apply it? Okay, good question. Time blocking is the tool that brings perspective to life and produces tangible, measurable results. That is the key to success. And like I said, that this year I started using the paper planner. I don't use it when I have to put an event in. I use it on a Sunday night when I go through my own phone and I write down all of the things that I have actually appointments on my calendar, because then I can see how much space there is in between those things. Those are the must attends. I have no option but to be here to teach, to go to whatever appointment it is, to watch Callie for an hour, you know, all those things. Those are must do's, right? They're appointments I've set with people. Now look, it reminds me of all the space in between. That's why I use that calendar. Now I can try and time block exactly, you know, where I'm going to be. For us, just getting to the office is a big thing. You know, it's a commitment to be in the office for a certain length of time. It's easy for me to disengage and stay at home. Super easy. My word for the year is engage, because I disengaged far too much last year. Didn't do me any good whatsoever. So if disproportionate results come from one activity, then you must give that one activity disproportionate time. Unfortunately, most individuals' typical days look something like the one on the left. Where is the little diagram? No, it's not. Okay, hold on till I find the diagram. Oh, maybe it's not.
After.
So you've got it. You've got the
Yeah.
typical day and the productive day. You've got it
Well, it's
on
like a
your
small diagram
yeah. On the bottom of your page, you've got a typical day. Everything else, you know, takes up 80% of the day, and one thing takes up 20%. That's what everybody's typical day looks like. When they find themselves with less and less time to focus on what matters, that is what it looks like. The most productive people's day is like the one on your right, where your one thing takes up a large amount of your time. So people think there's never enough time to be successful, but there is when you time block. But if you erase, you must replace. Interruptions happen. They're real. They've got to be done now, and you must drop what you're doing. In that case, you got to reschedule that time block. You can't just take it off and it doesn't happen. Reschedule it. Be consistent enough to set the habit. Block an hour each day to review your annually and monthly goals. I don't do it each day. I do it on a Sunday. It's kind of like my thing to do it on a Sunday. Be thoughtful and purposeful about the items you list on your calendar. Use your 411. Ask yourself what needs to happen that month to be on track. Time block for your big rocks. Block time early in the day. Block big chunks of it, no less than 4 hours. So we all know if you're going to start going to the gym, You really should do it first thing in the morning, because if you don't, something else will come along. Same thing with all of your big rocks, your leaf generation, whatever that is, get those things done in the morning. So we're always doing something, we're alive, we're doing something every minute of every day. The question is never will it be doing something, but rather what something is we'll be doing. Yeah, we're always doing something. And again, people think there's never enough time, but there is. So we've talked about the habits here. Be consistent to set the habit, be thoughtful and purposeful about the list, time block for your big rocks, erase, replace. We're going to skip this one as well because this involves using the goals, and this works in a big classroom setting on the whole day, but not when people have not been here before. So protect your time. That's a huge one. The world doesn't know your purpose and priorities and isn't responsible for them. You are. So how do we protect our time? Well, let's think about real estate. If we're
Closing your door.
what's that? Close our door? Yeah. The new doors and the new office are awesome because they're very solid.
They are solid.
And
Yes.
there's no glass, you can't peek
Right.
through them. So that's building our bunker, right? Don't leave it open, build a bunker. We got to protect it. It's our job. Find somewhere that's out of the path of disruption. Store for provisions. Oh my goodness, I'm hungry. I need a drink of water. That's just an excuse from your mind to go get something and get out your bunker, right? Stay in there. Take what you need in there. Store your provisions like a little squirrel. Sweep for minds. What does that mean? Turn off your phones, anything that's a distraction. You can be walking along doing a great thing, and all of a sudden, beep, text message, beep, Facebook notification, beep, showing time. Woohoo, somebody's showing a home.
Yeah.
Get excited about that one. Turn off all those things. Put them on silence. I don't even put them on silence when I really have to focus because I still get out the corner of my eye. Like right now, I'm like catching out the corner of my eye, these things just flashing up, right? So I really should turn it over or turn it off. So I do not see that when I'm, focusing here. Same thing as when you're working on your big rocks. Enlist support. What does that mean? Be accountable. Ask somebody to hold you accountable. I have the best accountability partner in the world for a lot of things, and it makes me so uncomfortable sometimes. And her name is Carol Sabatino. Oh my gosh, that lady can make me very uncomfortable, but I love it because she can hold me accountable. And so enlist support. Everybody needs support. Eugene was just talking about that. It doesn't matter whether it's a coach that you're in a coaching program and you're actually, paying for that yourself, or whether it's a friend in the office, you just get an accountability partner, get somebody. It's a big wide world out there. You need that support. So we're committing to our 80-20 principle. Who's got some ahas from what we've learned today? Who's going to tell me something that they're going to implement?
That was the big rocks.
It's a great
Yeah.
I mean,
I know the
vision.
concept before, but when you actually walk through the whole story, it really is obvious that even though it's uncomfortable, you're gonna get so much more done in less time. Yeah, you accomplish so much more if you just tackle the big rocks first.
And ultimately, it actually leaves you with more time
Yeah, right. Yeah.
because we're not scurrying like squirrels, right? And then we're trying to get things done and just it does give you more time
Yeah.
in the long run. The most important thing is getting the most time, but the 80-20 principle is in everything. I mean, just look at the board of realtors, 7,000 realtors in Naples.
Yeah,
There's only 1,400 of those actually produce over capping agents. So that's the 80-20 principle in real life. Everything we do has the 80-20 principle.
But is it okay? So this would be my question or comment, and like I would love to know what people think. Is as women, and I'm not like saying that men and women are different, but we very much are. But I feel like as women, we are more detail oriented. So how do you naturally move to less detail and just focus on lead generation? Where like when
Why,
So, so is. I'm trying to think of the quote. The shell line.
same shells.
It's okay, I just wrecked the training room. Don't worry, guys.
Always falls down.
Don't worry, I wrecked the training room. I'll
It's the
clean it up
shell.
afterwards. Oh, look, that's one way to get everybody in the training room. Wreck it. They're like, what happened? Michelle wrecked it. I'll fix it after. Don't worry. No, it's fine. It's
I
fine.
could have let on her foot, that would have been painful.
That's great. I'm doing that next time, and then everybody will come running.
True.
But is it though, Katie? Think about that. You mentioned the word detail there.
Right.
Is it really details? When you look at all those things and you were to write them down, are they truly details? Or are they just busy 80% things?
Well, right, and I guess when you said, yeah, I mean, I guess the success list is a good way to change, I think, detail oriented, because I think I look at a to-do list as it's a detailed plan, and really I don't know if it needs that much detail. And if you change, so I guess it kind of correlates together, you know.
So can you think of a specific example in regard to detail?
I mean, I think just kind of like what you said, it's like, okay, well, do you have your listing appointment done? Well, who gives a flying F if you have the listing appointment done? If you don't have anyone that you're going to list their house, why does it matter if you have one? So it's like, I think that's like, for me, when I first started, that's kind of where it was more like, okay, I want to make sure that it's the right color of branding and all this other jazz. But really it was just talking to people. I guess my problem though, I feel like, I think you, how do you bring value to just random people? Like if we're going to find leads, and that's, you know, that's our whole, this is this business, and you have to find your own leads, and the only way to do that is to communicate with people. I think one thing I always thought coming in was the value that I would give would be in the material that I would give them, but I think it's more in the conversations that we're having. I don't know,
So
gosh.
I would ask you to consider this one question. At any point, did we say not to do the 80%?
No.
Exactly. We did never at any point say not to do the 80%. We
Yeah.
just said to figure out what was the 20% that was the most important of the big rocks in real estate, that is our leads, and commit the most amount of time to that. We've still got the rest of our time. Think about that diagram where everybody, which is mostly in the 80% and a little bit in the 20%, and then this one, where it's the most effective or most productive people, half their time is in that 20% and half is in the 80%. The half in the 80% is still there,
Yeah,
right?
That totally
It's
makes
not that
sense.
it's gone.
it's huge for me, because that's where I get caught up in the details and I forget, and I just, yeah, and I'm a detail
Yeah.
person.
So it's gone. I think,
Right.
right.
Then you worry that you're not, it's always in the back of your mind, you're always thinking like, wait, I gotta do this, this, and this, it's like, just take care of the big rocks first, time block, yeah, totally
Right.
makes sense.
But I guarantee is always doing the small ones first.
That's
because
what,
they're
you missed
easier.
the first part, that's what we're talking about.
But they're easier, they're fun, right? You know, there are things that, oh, that's easy, I can knock through that, that looks good. I don't have to get uncomfortable to do that.
Yeah.
The things. The whole 80-20 principle is not about eliminating things. Now, maybe if there was too much in our 80%, we could leverage, right? Too much. So, Katie, you're a mother of young children. Maybe there's stuff, if you looked at the 80%, that you could say, I could leverage that and that because my children are some of my big rocks.
Right.
I could take those things that do need done and I could leverage them. Maybe I could just say, maybe leverage is just saying, let me use the generic listing appointment, listing presentation and put my name on it and be done with it and not pour for hours over what color am I going to use and my branding and all this and all the other. Do you know how much money over the years I've spent on branding? Like I could say, I told you so. I don't know how many times to my daughter, and she's not here, so I'm allowed to do that. But, and she would say, you're right. I sat and watched those girls pour over our website and all the stuff and the money that I spent on it and the branding and then this. And I do get it. It's important. And, you guys have got a phenomenal brand
Yeah,
and
it's a
you did
lot
great.
though. It is a lot.
But
Yeah.
but Kim has got leverage
Yeah.
because she's got Sonia right here. So that's the difference. So you could maybe look at your 80% list and say, what could I leverage and how could I leverage? Leverage isn't always a person. It could be something that's already done for you. It could just be, hey, could be a cleaner for the house.
And Kim was on a team that she leveraged using all their stuff, the Heather Kane team. That's how she started.
Exactly.
So she built momentum on that team using all of the things, the tools that were available. So they had listing presentations already done for them. And now that's what we are, is leverage to the other agents with our stuff that's already done for them.
Yeah.
So you start somewhere and then eventually, you got some money and you reinvest and
Right.
good, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing, Katie, as your own home life, right? You've got your kids, you've got all the things to do. You got to make them food, you got to clean the house, you got to do everything there. And if you wrote every single one of those things down and you said, what is the most important thing? I would think that time with your children and your partner would probably come up pretty high because you can't buy time, right?
Correct. Correct.
You don't buy time. However, I can pay Instacart to bring me my groceries.
Correct.
I can pay a cleaner to clean the house. But so that costs a bit more money, right? What funds your life? Real estate. And it goes back to that's the big rock, right? There's a big rock. But the big rock isn't just one thing. It's a half a dozen things that are the most important thing. Maybe it's three, but it's the most important things. Maybe you've got elderly parents that you don't see very often. We've all been in that situation. I was 2 years ago. I lost my mom on the drive back from family reunion. I wished I'd come back the night before. It was no fun. But, we've all got those things happen to everybody. But I stayed there. It wasn't really necessary that I didn't look at the big rocks. I just stayed, right? So we've all got things in our life that are important to us as well as providing for our lifestyle and our goals. There's always other things, but we didn't say get rid of them. We said leverage them or 80% them to the other time. Does that kind of make it a little bit more
Yes.
better in my opinion?
Yes. And honestly, in the team meeting, just hearing the Scott Leroy and being able to use that for leverage for marketing, I mean, you're right. I mean, for me, it's just, I don't want to spend a bunch of money yet, until I make a bunch of money. So then it's like figuring out when is it the right time to do all that kind of stuff. So I think just trying to figure out as much free leverage as I can up front. Yeah. And learning from people like you. I mean, there's no secret. Yeah.
Rip off and repeat. Sorry, it's all we do in real estate.
I know.
It is. It's nobody's got ideas that are not being somebody else has done them. We're lucky to be with the company we're in that we get willingly given people's secrets or ammunition. It's collaboration. We all grow when we all share. That is our company philosophy. So, use something that's already like that and then make it that it's repeatable, that you don't have to redo it every time, that you can just, as you go, the little things, then make it repeatable. Put it in a drive somewhere. Don't do what I used to do. Have it like all over the place. And then, I got it somewhere and I'm just going to copy it and do a new brochure for the new listing, but I don't know where the heck I find it. Stephanie, where is it? She doesn't know. So we made our Google Drive really, really specific. And so that I can just go in and just pull this and this and this and just copy it, take out the words, delete, copy right back in from the MLS. It works awesome. Any other ahas?
This is Linda. I am just now starting my second year as a realtor, and I feel like it took an entire year to kind of weed through the first 80%. It was all the classes, the learning, just all of it. Now that I'm in my second year, I decided that I'm going to work smarter, and I really love these smart plans. I was able to set up a smart plan. I live in the village, walk out in Bonita. There's 1,650 homes here. And I kept asking myself, how do I get to these people? And how do I not spend a ton of money doing it? So I was able to set up a smart plan that every 9 weeks, 6 times a year, my neighbors get a text message from me, introducing myself. And it's generating leads. They're calling me.
That's
Like,
awesome.
yeah, and I would love to share this with everybody. And then in addition to the text campaign, I have an email campaign. I'm trying to set myself up as the expert here in the neighborhood. So every 2 months, I send out over 500 emails to my neighbors, letting them know what's happened in the last 2 months, what's sold, how long it stayed on the market, what was the difference between the asking price. And I even add in, what was the model? What model house did they have, and if they had a pool or not?
Right.
It's a value add that you don't find in the MLS or unless you're really digging for it.
No, exactly. And that's awesome. And because you live in there, you've got those phone numbers and email addresses from your community membership book. Is that, I'm guessing that's what
No, this is actually kind of funny. I started first at Remine, and I
Okay.
found out all the homeowners' names, and then I went into Forewarn,
Uh-huh.
and I looked up all my neighbors. And
Oh my
as a
gosh.
result, it was so worth it. It was absolutely so
Yeah.
worth it. I had been banned from Forewarn for life. I'm no longer allowed to be on it because I misused it, but it was worth
Now, have you had any pushback from people saying
it.
don't contact me, or I mean,
Yeah, of
obviously,
course, of course. I've seen that my drop rate is about 10%.
yeah.
I've gotten some nasty stuff,
Uh-huh.
including a man sent me a picture of his junk.
Oh,
Yeah, I know who it is. He's here in the
my.
neighborhood. At some point, I'm going to run into him.
Oh,
But actually, what's kind of in the text, they can opt out. If they just say stop, I stop. I take them off the list. I will never bother them again. But what's kind of nice too is what I'm getting lately are people who write me back and say, "Oh, we're never selling. We love it here. We're never leaving." And I take that as an opportunity to write them back and say, "Hey, me too. I just got here 4 years ago. I'm never leaving. I love it." And in fact, I'm on a mission right now to get all my friends from up north to move down here. So maybe you want to join me on my mission. Let me help you get your friends down here too.
Right.
Love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are great
Wow.
things. Just be careful with that do not call thing, Broker Jeff's down the corridor, don't get us in trouble. But, it's great. And, I'm sure that you've started to think about what could you do inside the community to build onto that, to
Absolutely.
and or something like that.
I am the newest member of the Bocce Ball League.
There you go.
I volunteer for the election committee. Anything that I can do, just taking walks, going to the gym,
Yeah.
talking to people. The
Yeah.
more I'm out there, the better.
Maybe as part of your business plan for, this year or maybe next year, whenever you feel ready, that you can add in one event a quarter, and you maybe can, bring somebody in. You get the use of the clubhouse and you bring somebody in that provides value. Maybe it's, we've done paper shredding. Maybe you sponsor the paper shredding truck that sits out there and people bring their stuff to get shredded, and you're handing out information to people. Here's who I am, and I sponsored it, and then you get an opportunity with that to touch those people probably 2 or 3 times before and 2 or 3 times after. So it's a great touch. Maybe
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
maybe it's an estate planning person to talk. You know, there's all sorts of ideas out there.
I have pretty stiff competition here in the neighborhood.
I'm sure you
There
do.
are 5 other realtors that are very active and do exactly what you're saying. In fact, one is doing a coffee and conversation next month. Another woman, she sponsors an annual fishing competition.
Oh,
Yeah, and she gets to put a huge billboard up in the post office, so everybody gets to see her face for 2 months while this is going
Yeah.
on.
Yeah, those are all good things, but maybe you just look at what they're doing and kind of go somewhat of a different direction, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I've got ideas. I've got a couple ideas. So.
Good
yeah,
stuff.
let's come.
Awesome. That's really awesome stuff.
But so what I with this smart plan, I'm really thinking it's working smarter, not harder,
Mhm.
because it took a while to set it up. To say I applied that D2 DT.
D2,
Yeah, and
DTD2.
ironically, here in the Village Walk, all of the streets are named A through Z. So on day 1, everybody on the A streets, they get hit. Next day, the Bs, the C's all the way down. So I'm not inundated by sending out more than I never send out more than 200 texts a week.
Uh-huh.
But,
Good.
yeah.
That's your leverage right there, right? You know, the smart plans, that's your leverage.
Yeah. So when I know the messages start going out at 11, when I start, getting a stop, when I start getting responses.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Good.
all in
Awesome.
all, like I said, I've been doing this now. I started it December 1st, and it's gotten me 6 qualified leads. I've given 4 seller presentations, and I'm
Wow.
waiting to find out if I've got 2 guys. Come on, tell me, call me.
So December 1st of 2024,
Mhm.
you have got 6 qualified leads.
Correct. In that first go around.
Basically 1 qualified lead a week.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a numbers game.
What's your goal for 25? How many units?
14. I'm brand new. I'm brand new, and I backed my way into that number by looking at the finances.
So with that number that you've already got, 6 qualified leads, 1 a week, you're already bang on track to do it. If you don't even think about anything else other than keeping going with that, you are spot on to do your goal.
Thank you. Thank you.
Nice job. Nice job.
Thanks.
Woo!
And like I said, I'd be happy to share this with anybody who wants it.
Me,
Just don't
I'll
come
call
to the
you,
Village Walk.
That's
That's my
the
farm.
Exactly. Good stuff. Well, there you go, Katie. You can chat
Yeah.
with Linda.
Yeah,
there about-
Katie, call me.
Absolutely, I will.
Thank you for sharing that, Linda. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
All right, guys. Well, do we have anything else? Are we wrapping up? Anybody else got any ahas? Who's gonna go work on their success list? Woohoo! Me too. No, I'm still working on my success list from last week because I felt so horrible when I saw that last night. But that's okay. Uncomfort is what makes us move. What is it? What's our old law? Emotion. Oh gosh, it's gone from my mind. Come on, bold students. What's the bold law? Something makes you and something makes you move. So I'm definitely
Diamonds, no pressure. I don't really.
that's no pressure, no
There you go.
no pressure, no diamonds, but emotion makes you think, no, logic makes you think, emotion makes you act.
Yes.
So that is it. My emotions last night were pretty off the chart. So I was listening to a podcast on the way home, and I'm going to share this for fear of getting my $20 KW cares, but I'm going to share it. I thought it was great. You know, we have something in bold called the drunk monkey. He's the little monkey that sits on our shoulder and tells us, that's not a good idea. You can't do that. That's going to be painful. You're going to get rejection. All of those things, right? And this lady yesterday on the podcast, she called it something different. She said, it's the itty bitty shitty committee. I was like, oh my goodness. I texted Stephanie that my itty bitty shitty committee is very today in my head.
Quiet down.
And she was like, what? And I
That's so
said,
funny.
isn't that great?
Oh,
Love it. So that is good. That went in my little coaching book. I'm like, I'm using that from now on because I got a lot of those little itty bitty committees in my head. Believe me. All right, guys, have a good rest of your day.
thank you so much.
You
My
too.
pleasure.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Mhm.
It's good, right?
I remember that one.
It's really good.